on. All right, perfect. All right, Dad. So I'm Jack Tormey, and this is my dad, Michael Tormey. Why don't you give us a second, explain what you do professionally, and let us know.
Sure, Jack. I am, and for your class, I am the head of strategy for the private client group at Raymond James, which is a financial services firm in the U.S., headquartered in Florida. But my responsibility is for coming up with our strategy and implementing things across all of our biggest businesses within the firm, everything that advisors face and talking with their clients in the wealth management industry.
Gotcha. So I selected you as my ethical perspectives interview because I feel as if, you've had a lot of years of corporate work under you and you've been in New York and Manhattan for the majority of your work. So I feel like you've definitely faced enough ethical dilemmas to have a decent ethical framework for yourself. So we'll get right into it. What or who has had the most influence in shaping your ethical outlook and why?
I think it's having good mentors and picking people that as you work, you respect them. You respect their both their intellect, their ability to communicate, and their way to navigate through difficult situations, and try to pick them as mentors and follow their lead while you develop your own style for dealing with a number of those things. I would say one of the things that shaped kind of ethically my view on things early on in my career, right, is you've always heard the adage of like, don't do anything you wouldn't want to see on the cover of the New York Times, right? With your name associated with it. And there are a number of different things that you run into in your life where that happens. That most directly happened to me when I was a young guy, probably only 3 or 4 years out of school. And I had been in a job where I was responsible for um, working with the head trader of a certain business at the firm I was working with at the time. And he was the head of the desk for the business, and I was doing their profit and loss statement. So every day they would do trading. The next day I'd make sure that we were able to report up correctly the books and records, how much money we made. Um, I noticed an anomaly in something that was being done. Um, I raised it and to that trader, and I could tell I was given an evasive answer, which you kind of have a spider sense about you and a sniff
Yeah.
test, and it didn't seem that was making sense. I escalated to my boss, and agreed with me, and then he brought it to his boss to make sure I get air cover, who was the CFO at the time, and the CFO chose to want to sweep it under the rug.
Okay.
And that was definitely an alarm bell for us that something was odd, and ultimately that kind of escalated. And I think that the real pivot point I had during this whole exchange is when it did get escalated and there was an investigation that took place. I was trying to get a job to be working on that trading desk, and that head trader would have been my boss and would have been the guy that put me on that desk.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and he tried to coerce my testimony and tell me that I should say something that I knew not to be true.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was an inflection point. Is either I was going to lie and help cover this up for this individual and in terms of ingratiate him and then possibly get myself onto a desk, or I had to do what I thought was right. Um, and I told the truth. And um, that trader wound up getting fired. The CFO wound up getting fired. I wound up having to go down to the SEC and testify in Washington D.C. with microphones in front of my face and a team full of lawyers. And as a result, the senior manager of the firm, respected my ability to identify this, to stand up, and effectively elevated me to a whole new department they created of risk management. That I was kind of the head of that department. So, 25
Yeah.
years old, that was a pretty big inflection point in my career. I knew I didn't know enough to actually do that. So then I had to work on trying to get myself educated on the
Yeah.
responsibilities of that job. But it was an inflection point, and it did kind of speak to kind of the ethical dilemma of do I lie and help myself, or do I do the right thing?
No, absolutely. And that absolutely sounds like it was an event that had a huge influence on your ethical standards and how you conduct yourself in the future. That's a great story, and I appreciate you sharing it to me, but it segues perfectly into my next question. That definitely sounds like a huge ethical failure that you've seen in your own in your own professional career. How do you think you could have prevented that if you were maybe involved in it earlier, or if you were one of the other people that were truly, knee deep in it?
Um, I was knee deep in it, and it had this tale had all the earmarks of abuse of power
Okay.
for that individual. He ran his desk with an iron fist and um, yelled at everybody, demeaned everybody, humiliated everybody, and by his bullying, he effectively got everybody to kind of fall in line.
Okay.
So it just took somebody to stand up to him, and I stood up to him earlier on, um, which is another story not fit for sharing with your class, but and I think he knew he couldn't push me around.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate it. I'll right into the next question. Can you describe a significant, well, I mean, that sounds perfectly like a significant ethical dilemma and how you faced it and navigated it. Maybe instead of asking that, I'll ask you, how did that kind of affect you once you were on the other side of that and now you're in a position of leadership and management where you are the person ruling the desks. How do you kind of manage, taking that experience and then going ahead and saying, okay, now I'm the one in charge. I'm the one kind of leading these operations. How do we avoid these kind of ethical situations?
So I think it's kind of the mirror test. What do you do? How can you look at yourself in the mirror with decisions that you've got to make? Every day we make decisions, and as I said earlier, there should be a spider sense within you. When you know something doesn't seem right, well, that's a good pause to kind of stop and check what's going on. Oftentimes, you'll find that people that are doing wrong things create a false sense of urgency of
Okay.
things they need to do. You have to do this now. This is really important to bully you into doing something that may not be right. And I think whenever you feel yourself getting pushed or pulled in a respectful way, you got to pause, find time to give yourself the grace to kind of think through it, think through the implications, and then tag in other people. Ask other people in your firm, ask a supervisor, ask somebody in HR, ask somebody elsewhere to be a sounding board. Because especially coming out of college, you don't have the benefit of experience of having seen many of these things, and it may seem perfectly fine to you, but ask the question. I'd rather have somebody that works for me pause and ask the question and come to and deliver something to me a day late than kind of push something through and didn't pause and ask the question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a great answer. I've got one more real hard hitting question for you. So I've saved a little bit of time for it. What do you see as the greatest professional ethics crisis as of today? And how can emerging professionals prepare to deal with it? Guys graduating out of college and emerging into that scene. How do you prepare to deal with that?
Oh, it's a good question. I think for your generation, the ethical slippery slope we'll all contend with is the use and or abuse of artificial intelligence. Right?
Absolutely.
It's such a shiny object that looks like such an easy out on so many different fronts. But you read in the paper, you see time and time again where people blindly refer to a result in AI without employing their mind or rereading things to see whether it applies. We've seen in the news in the last couple of weeks, um, judges throw lawyers out because they're citing things that they found in their briefing documents that they file with the judge, and they're citing cases that don't exist. They're absolutely fictitious, and they didn't do the extra step of going and saying, trust but verify. Let me see, is that really a case? Does that apply? It's great if they identify it for you, but then it's your responsibility. Your name's on that work product to go back and make
Yeah,
sure what you're ultimately submitting is reflective. AI is a great and powerful tool, but you have to know how to use it and have it work for you, and you have to supervise it just like you would any employee that works for you.
100%. 100%. That AI is even an ethical problem in students, like just, handling simple assignments or essays or discussion boards. It's very difficult for a lot of kids turn the other way to that stuff and not utilize that resource because you're like you said, it's absolutely a shiny new object, and it forces younger people who are emerging into that professional, level to be faced with this moral, ethical, dilemma before they're even out of college. So I think that is a perfect example of something that's going to be, an ethics crisis for us today. And Dad, I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, but we've hit our time limit. So I appreciate all the answers that you had and all the insight, and this was very helpful for me, and I'm sure my class will definitely appreciate it as well. So thank you, Dad.
You got it. Good luck, and good luck to everybody in your class, and good Tigers.
Thanks, Pops. Thank you.